Why the why is superior. How social structures prioritize the male experience. Desiree was abused twice, the first time when she was just in primary school. Asato experienced genital mutilation at the age of 6 years old. Soraya had to drink water from the same pond as livestock because of a lack of clean drinking water in her region. Lucy was a police officer and said men would use sexual advances against her, thinking that would get them off of the hook. These are the stories of women from the UN Women's editorial series, From Where I Stand. They tell us about the inequality that women experience simply for being born women. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development Social Institutions and Gender Index, 56% of the world's population believes that when mothers work for pay, her children suffer. 1 in 3 women and girls globally will experience some form of violence or abuse in their lifetime. Nearly 2/3 of the world's population of illiterate adults are women, a statistic that has not budged in nearly 2 decades. The inequality and neglect in medical care of women worldwide has led to the excess mortality of more than 100 million women around the world. Society associates certain occupations, traits, and interests with certain genders. These associations and stereotypes have a greater negative impact than they do positive. Gender inequality is the unequal and even discriminatory treatment of genders, with members of the male gender typically treated as superior in society. In fact, social structures prioritize the male experience, otherizing the female experience and creating barriers to women in various facets of life. Structure is derived from the Latin word structura. It is a created space that enables certain actions and prohibits others. A structure is something constructed. A social structure is a specific subset of structures, and it is made of the interdependent choices that members of a society make. In fact, they do not exist outside of the behavior that creates them. The 3 basic kinds of social structures are rules, representations, and relationships. Rules are the shared prescriptions and proscriptions of society. That is, they're the informal norms and formal law. Informal rules are those that are not in law but are socially enforced. For example, chivalry, that men should hold open doors to women, open their car doors, walk closest to the street on a sidewalk, pay for their dinner, etc., is a socially crafted and enforced code. Formal rules are those which are written in law. For example, the law prohibits the taking of the property of another with the intent of depriving that person of the use of their property. To do so would be considered a crime, punishable through the legal system. Representations are the shared schemes of categorization. In how they relate to society, they are the stereotypes or associations given to groups of people. An association is that the female gender is typically represented by the color pink, while the male gender is typically represented by the color blue. A stereotype is that Asians are smart and especially good at math. Representation enables and prohibits actions in the way that is a result of the advantage or disadvantage people experience based on the group they belong to. Relationships are the sustained interaction between individuals. Relationships are often studied by those seeking to understand networks, and they enable and constrain actions in that the ties around it have important implications for our life chances. For example, Mario Small and the Agoses research shows that networks have been increasingly relied upon by those in poverty as aid from welfare programs has decreased. Gender inequality is perpetuated by social structures that prioritize the male experience. In doing so, women are defined by her departure from a male standard. That is, the ways in which women are different from men dictate how she is treated. This treatment is structural in that it is a consequence of the interdependent choices that members of a society make. There are 3 distinct areas in which social structures prioritize the male experience: language, law, and medical research. The first way in which the male gender has been reinforced as the standard is through language. The collective human identity is masculine. We use man to describe our species and mankind as a way to unify us. An Invisible Woman, Data Bias in a World Designed for Men, Caroline Criado describes how the masculine framework has been so deeply embedded in our subconscious that even genuinely gender-neutral words like doctor or actor are read as male. So, in many ways, language both reflects and creates the gender inequalities that exist in society. The bias created by the standardization of the male experience carries into the writings of the legal system. law is inextricably tied with language and that semantics are crucial for interpreting and understanding it. The Declaration of Independence itself uses this notion that the collective human identity is masculine. It says that all men are created equal. The U.S. Constitution uses the pronoun he to talk about the President of the United States. The American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of Man declares that all men are born free and equal. The Massachusetts Constitution says that the governor of Massachusetts should be referred to by the titles of His Excellency and His Honor. The third distinct way that social structures propagate the male experience is in the medical field. The female body has long been studied less than the male body and purposely excluded from medical research. Aside from reproductive organs, medicine historically persisted with the belief that all other organs and functions would operate the same in men and women, so there was no need to study women. Researchers claim that the menstrual cycle, as well as hormones belonging exclusively to women, introduce too many variables. Therefore, females cannot be studied. For the first 20 years of its running, the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging excluded women from its study. Further, a 2018 study found evidence of serious male biases in basic, preclinical, and clinical research by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration when testing prescription drugs. The treatment of women in medicine has led to women being treated first and foremost as reproductive bodies. Even in law, women have been defined in terms of her domestic and reproductive function within a male-dominated household. The definition of woman in regard to her reproductive functions has led to the objectification of women, including sexual violence and abuse against her. In Women and Equality, the Capabilities Approach, Martha Nussbaum says that human beings have a dignity that reserves respect from laws and social institutions. This dignity, however, is often violated on grounds of sex. Derogatory attitude toward women undermines their respect as fundamental equals to their male counterparts. Nussbaum offers an application of the Capabilities Approach by Amartya Sen as a way of addressing women and equality. Nussbaum says that the best way of thinking about what rights are is to see them as capabilities. Capabilities looks at the ability that people have to access the basic functions of the society around them. It recognizes the structural barrier to women achieving their basic capabilities as a result of gender inequality. We are all entitled to be able to achieve our capabilities. In this vein, women are entitled to not have their dignity violated on behalf of their sex. In Why Gender Equality is Good for Everyone, Men Included, Michael Kimmel argues that gender equality is in everyone's best interest. Gender equality is a way for men to obtain the lives they want. Countries that are the most gender equal are the happiest. When men share housework and childcare, the lives of everyone in the household are improved. In such households, children do better in school, have lower rates of absenteeism, and have higher rates of achievement. They are less likely to be diagnosed with ADHD, are less likely to see a child psychiatrist, and are less likely to be put on medication. In such households, women are less likely to see a therapist, less likely to be diagnosed with depression, and more likely to go to the gym. In such households, men smoke less, drink less, and take recreational drugs less often. They are less likely to be diagnosed with depression, less likely to be taking prescription medication, and more likely to go to the doctor for routine screenings. The most significant finding is that men and women both report higher levels of marital satisfaction. A utilitarian believes that right acts are right insofar as they bring about the most happiness. According to a utilitarian, the maximization of happiness is in everyone's best interest. The maximum aggregate happiness is achieved, as studied by Kimmel, when men and women are treated equally. POV 101 touches upon gender inequality through its consequences, the study of time, poverty, and prostitution, but does not address the structural causes. More specifically, it does not address that social structures propagate a masculine identity. Structural causes of inequality can be difficult to address because they require changes within the institutions that perpetuate these inequalities. Such a change can feel impossible to achieve, but the largest social reforms occurred because of the advocacy of individuals and groups of people. If everyone were too afraid to challenge the institution, slavery might still be around today, and the civil rights movement may never have happened. How social structures prioritize the male experience should be studied in an attempt to address the unconscious masculine narrative that underlies the problems of poverty and inequality.